I'm going to go, we have a presentation that typically is about an hour. I've condensed that because, in the interest of time, I don't want to lose anybody's attention, if you will. So I've condensed this down. If you want a copy of this, if you request this presentation, we can email you this one, and we can also email you the full version. So with that being said, I'll go into it again. My name is Steve Peterson. I'm the broker owner of Infinity Investments, which is a commercial real estate brokerage and investment firm specializing in apartment building. So the first topic, and if you have any questions, jump in, but we're going to try to keep this to 30 minutes because I want to make this time efficient. But if you have a burning question, just jump right on in. Okay, so the first thing I want to cover is why buy multifamily. Lamar just went over how you can take your funds, your investment funds, and make them self-directed. Once you've done that, or if you just have cash or additional investment capital, now you have to make some decisions about what to do with that. Well, here are some basic reasons that I see as important in terms of why to buy multifamily property. You got within the real estate category, you've got a lot of different subcategories. You got single family houses, condos, you have multifamily property, you have retail property, office property, industrial property, land, self-storage. There's a lot of different options. So we think right now that multifamily is one of the better options within the real estate category for a few reasons. Number one is the ability for stable cash flow during the holding period. Now, when I say stable cash flow, that's kind of a general word. But when you have multiple units, you have more than one unit, and you're planning on holding this investment for a period of time, if you buy it right, and we'll go over some of how you analyze a property, but if you buy it right, the whole purpose of it is that it generates a cash flow. You just don't want to buy it and have it, negative cash flow or not producing income. You want it to generate a stable cash flow. And multifamily properties typically are the best avenues within the real estate world or any other investment avenues that generate a stable cash flow. What we're seeing right now in the Bay Area, and if I talk about the markets, I'll talk a lot about the East Bay. What we're seeing right now is you can achieve double-digit cash-on-cash returns. I'll explain kind of what cash-on-cash return is, but basically, a lot of people are making more than 10% on their cash in the form of income now in the Bay Area. And those type of numbers have been unheard of for quite some time. So this market has created some really good opportunities. Secondly, high occupancy rates currently and historically. Multifamily properties, even when the economy goes in the toilet, still the occupancy levels for multifamily are way higher than they are for office, way higher than they are for especially for retail. Retail is very susceptible to the economy. Industrial, so on and so forth. The occupancy rates, even in the East Bay, Oakland in particular, even when I think the height, I don't want to say the height of the recession is at the bottom of the recession, I don't know, but the worst part of the recession, we still didn't go above 10% vacancy rate at the worst period of time. Now, that's Oakland. If you take like a Detroit, which is seriously hit, I think their highest vacancy rate was somewhere around 30 or so percent. Even that's a huge number. That's probably the worst. I know some other people like Raphael you buy across the country, that's probably 30% probably the worst vacancy rate you could in record or in history. But even that is better than the average vacancy rates of office, retail, industrial, and other types of property and businesses that you can invest in when things go bad. So when times are good, rates are really high, and even when times are bad, they're not that bad. They're not catastrophic. So that's what we like about apartment buildings. Also, today, and in typical markets, financing is available at attractive rates. Now, there has not been a lot of bank capital or lending capital available for investment properties for a little while. And I have to tell you that this year, that has begun to shift. 2009, 2010, I did not see any deals get funded through banks. Investment properties, commercial properties, in my own personal practice. I have seen a few banks make loans on apartment buildings this year, and more of them are coming back, advertising their apartment loan products, contacting me as a broker investor and saying, hey, what do you got? And I've seen a few deals, like I said, this year get done. So I'll give you an example. One of my clients refinanced his 81-unit building using, it's a Fannie Mae loan. It's insured by Fannie Mae. I think the lender was Greystar. He refied that property at a 4.6% interest rate, fixed for 30 years. You know, the term is 10 years, but the rate is fixed for 30 years, 4.6%. So attractive finance. You're not going to find that on a retail office property. You know, if you're going out and, you know, and if you're aggressive and you're buying a company, you know, you want to go buy a business, you're definitely not going to find those type of rates. So apartment buildings have some advantages. Also, apartment buildings versus a single family resident, you're going to have economies of scales that SFR, single families, do not have. Now, don't let me discourage you from buying a house if you're looking at buying a house, because oftentimes a house, especially a single family home, could be a good starter, especially in this market right now because the prices are so low and the income is good. However, when your tenant moves out of a house or your condo, you are now 100% vacant. You know, now, you should be able to rent it out pretty quickly, but for that period of vacancy, you have no income coming in. With an apartment building, you have multiple units. So if someone moves out, the other tenants, there's income coming from the other tenants that allow you to pay the bills and the mortgage, if you've done the numbers right. But that's critical. If you're owning single family homes for the purpose of income versus, now if you're flipping single family homes, you don't have to worry about holding it. But if you're holding if you buy a single family home for the purpose of holding it for the income, you have to be prepared for that month or 2 months maybe even of vacancy where you have no income coming in. So that's where reserves are important. We'll talk about reserves. But apartments, multifamily property gives you economies of scale that single family homes don't have because of the multi-family dwellings. Okay? Also, and I think real estate in general, but since we're talking about apartments, is an excellent generator and then preserver of wealth. So if you're trying to build wealth, you know, apartment buildings allow you the opportunity to generate passive income and also equity buildup and hopefully appreciation of the asset, which builds income, generates income. And really any property can do that. But then also, I think where apartments come in over some of the other real estate categories in terms of when we're talking about preserving wealth. So there's generating wealth and then preserving wealth. Apartments are great for both, but when we're talking about preserving wealth, apartments do a lot for your capital when you're trying to preserve it because, number one, of the cash flow. So the cash flow coming in should be a hedge against inflation. I'm not an economist, so I'm not going to get into the inflation numbers and all that type of stuff, but we're expecting some inflation here in the near future. And so I've heard that a few different places. So when you have income coming in, and you should be making, I mean, right now, you should be making at least around 10% on your money. If you're doing an income property in the Bay Area, target making at least 10% on your money. And so that income that's coming in, it should be beating inflation, no matter how bad it gets. You should be able to beat it with the income, just simply with the income. So what you also have the ability to do is the equity buildup. It's small, but when every time you make that mortgage payment, and the tenants basically are making your mortgage payment, you're paying down that mortgage, you're building up your wealth, okay? Hopefully, appreciation is not something that we can control when we're talking about the marketplace, but appreciation is something we can control when we increase the income, and we'll go into that. But apartments help you to generate wealth, but they also help you to preserve wealth, okay? And then there's a lot of different reasons why, and we can go into all that, but understand that, you know, the income that comes from the buildings are critical to helping you to build wealth, but also helping you to keep it. Prices right now, I'll end with this and we'll go on. Prices right now in the East Bay, and really across the country, but in the East Bay, have dropped more than 50% in some areas. You know, some areas have been hit really bad. The prices, however, the rents right now are about where they were at their peak, and they're rising. So the prices are down, but the rents are basically still where they are. So, and the occupancy rates are getting stronger, and you know, the fundamentals are we're not building a lot of apartment buildings. There's a lot of people who've lost their homes are now in the rental market, and we can't build apartment buildings or really a lot of stuff right now because the cost of construction is higher than the value of the property. So therefore, you know, rents are starting to rise. So another reason why multifamily property is a great investment. All right. Now, so